Page 387. On the other hand, you might meet another human being whose appearance is squalid and whose language is rough, thereby giving a poor impression, whereas an inclination and trust become perceptible. Truly, this process is a matter of a fluidal radiation from you human beings, in which case your swinging waves communicate sympathy or antipathy. And in fact, this is entirely according to the condition of your thoughts and feelings, which form the condition of the psyche, your consciousness and personality, as well as the character. Equally, fluidal powers are involved if, for example, you enter a room for the first time and immediately experience oppressive thoughts and feelings. And although the room is clean and tidy, it appears impossible that a well feeling could come about there, or that it would be possible to work there. The solution for such a perception lies in the radiated fluidal powers of human beings who work or live in the room, in which case the fluidal powers' radiations of the thought and feeling impulsations, as well as of the character, of the consciousness, and of the personality, are of those human beings who use the room for their purposes. To understand this means that you human beings must carefully study the creational laws and recommendations and their modes of functioning in order to be able to understand that the fluidal powers arise out of the thought, feeling, consciousness, and psyche impulsations, as well as out of the consciousness activity and out of all impulsations, such as love and hatred, jealousy, rage, anger, and irascibility, etc. The swinging waves, i.e., fluidal powers, of which are stored in objects, furniture, and walls, etc., and are perceived by the person who is confronted with them, bringing forth an oppressive or uplifting mood. And truly these explanations are not presumptions or deluded beliefs, but the fluidal powers are truthful effects of natural laws which are only little or not at all known to you. A sudden imagination, an idea, a decision or a thought appears like a light out of an unknown source, an intuition which provides an answer to almost every question and makes it possible to find a way out of many lackings, if the truth is pursued and enough consideration is given to it by following the efficacies of the creational laws and recommendations. The light out of the unknown source, the intuition, is part of your human consciousness power, which is supplied through your creation-given spirit form, which animates your human body, and which weaves through each cell of the body and of the inner nature of you human beings. Your entire consciousness power can be used by you if you only strive to do so, and you create the capabilities to do so. But unfortunately, the bulk of your entire humankind only uses a small part of its own powers of the consciousness. Therefore, also, only a small part of the possible capabilities is created, whilst in turn only an exceedingly small part of the acquired capabilities is actually put into action. Truthfully, however, it is possible for all capabilities to be created, used, and rendered serviceable if the creational laws and recommendations of the truth are taken, understood, and used, wherethrough an enriched, fulfilled, and joyful life can be led. Truthfully, the creational laws and recommendations are and remain no secrets if they are really fathomed, and they are equal throughout the entire universe. Therefore, they can be understood by each of you human beings if you fathom and recognize them. Unfortunately, however, this knowledge is not generally spread, and the reason for this is because it has no longer been taught since time immemorial, although the true prophets have taught it through the quote, teaching of the prophets, through the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, again and again, through the, quote, Goblet of the Truth. Unfortunately, for one thing, the teaching has been falsified by scribes according to their own whim, after they had been tasked through the prophets to record the teaching in writing, so as to deliver it up to the future. And for another thing, the teaching was calumniated as a work of the evil by those who set themselves against the, quote, teaching of the prophets, just as they persecuted the prophets and threatened their life, and decried their signs, i.e., the evidence they gave, as magic. Therefore the bulk of your earthly humankind has been excluded from the existing and illuminating truth. Over hundreds and thousands of years, the attempts of the true prophets to teach the teaching of the wisdom and of the truth has been suppressed with Gewalt, and indeed this continues up to the present day, in which many religions exist, whose believers offer worship and supplication to gods and tin gods invented by you human beings, although this can bring neither benefit nor harm to them. And the worshippers of gods and worshippers of tin gods of the godly religions are the ones who suppress and falsify the truth of the creation, and the mode of functioning of its laws and recommendations with all their might, who deny and calumniate the true prophets in order to inflict harm on their reputation and their mission work. Therefore, it is still the case in the new time that the worshippers of gods and worshippers of tin gods and the mightiness of religions do everything so that the knowledge of the teaching of the true prophets, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, the, quote, Goblet of the Truth, cannot be passed on unrestrictedly, but can only be taught in small groups, and indeed, also, only there, where you human beings liberate yourselves from the religions and their servants of gods and servants of tin gods, out of your own initiative and out of your own interest in the real truth, and are able to turn to the effective creational truth. Therefore it is a fact that the God worshippers and tin God believers of the religions, who are ethically unschooled in the effective creational truth, use their belief in supposed gods and tin gods for self-seeking purposes, in order to shine before you human beings, to obtain a good reward for untruth, and to be able to lead a good life in idleness. And it goes without saying that all of this is on the back of the laboriously acquired might and taxes that are taken from the believers. And truly, you human beings are guided through the religious belief into the unreal, and are misused for the exploitation of the truth unknowers, in which case you are held distant from the truth, and taught irrationally with regard to supposed things that are imputed to be supernatural or unnatural. Truthfully, however, there are no unnatural and also no supernatural things, because everything moves according to the fixed creational laws and recommendations. There are no secrets in the creational laws and recommendations, but only things of your human uncognition, through which the laws and recommendations of the creation are wrongly interpreted and untruly explained, due to wrong understanding, or through unknowledge. And that also relates to the investigation of your human self and to the universe. Indeed, for you human beings there is nothing more enthralling than the fathoming of yourself and of the universe and of your entire world in which you live, in order to experience the effective truth. And truly, there is no stronger source of the confidence than the recognition of the truth in all things, and that, except for the true love, there is no greater might than the knowledge and the wisdom that can be used and enable things and miracles to be done, which you, as human beings, cannot dream about, if you only create the necessary capabilities in yourselves, or awaken them out of the slumber, if they already exist, but are lying dormant. And these capabilities are great, extensive, gigantic, and wide-ranging, so alone the touching of objects can transfer many kinds of messages, or thoughts and feelings can be transmitted into the surroundings, or indeed far away through swinging waves. And indeed, it is possible for you human beings to perceive the outgoing swinging waves from another human being, and to define them in order to determine their feelings or character, etc. in this wise. Truly, the entire life is influenced through the capabilities you have acquired, as are also the thoughts and feelings, deeds and actions, through the fundamental creational truth, which is to be found alone in the laws and recommendations of the creation, and also in the thereout resulting nature. And if you turn to this all-embracing truth and make it your own, then you will find a way to reform your entire life and to learn to find yourselves and to guide yourselves. And if you find the way, then every minute, every hour, and every day, week in and week out, month in and month out, and year in and year out, will become a joyful experience, because the sequence of all things is determined by yourselves, and is no longer left to chance. And in order to go this way, it is not necessary to change your previous activity or to abandon the social obligations which you had until now, because truthfully you human beings can leave the developmental change of outer things to the guidance of the truth, which is found in the creational laws and recommendations. The fathoming and learning of the creational laws and recommendations reveals the secrets of the creational life, in which case learning them is not simply the same as a teaching through which mere school knowledge is imparted, where through the memory is unnecessarily burdened with many worthless things. Quite to the contrary, indeed, the creational laws and recommendations activate innate powers in you human beings, which show effect in the consciousness and promote, create, or awaken capabilities which you are at rest, which in turn leads to the strengthening of your self-consciousness. Through that, however, it is also learned that the right and best way is taken, and therefore not only one's own life, but also the environment are understood and mastered. If you strive for the truth that proceeds out of the creational laws and recommendations, then you will guide yourselves step by step into new knowledge and into new areas of knowledge, at the same time as which the truthly truth will flow into the consciousness almost unnoticed, bringing solutions to secrets that had existed up until now, out of which practical experience and living experience proceed, becoming knowledge, and finally, life wisdom. If you work yourselves into the truthly truth in the form of the creational laws and recommendations, with motivation and with interest, then you will rather soon experience a considerable developmental change in the thought and feeling world, which will also be realized in the life itself, if the essence of the learning is implemented practically in everyday life, through which a greater help in the mastering of all problems arises in a perceptible wise. And truly, it is through the learning of the truth out of the creational laws and recommendations that the creational guidelines become clear, which are necessary in order to tread the life way rightly, and to live in conformity with the laws and recommendations of the creation, which guarantee that you human beings experience uplifting times in your existence.